Was it a mistake when he canceled on her yesterday?
I don't think so, because I think at a certain point, if you're Michael Vick, what else are you going to tell us about your story? Not saying I'm trying to diminish it, but his story is a rags to riches story, whether people want to get on board with it or not. Maybe sometimes it's good to just go away for a while and let everything just settle and get out of the limelight and focus on what you're supposed to focus on, which is your family, yourself, and getting ready for the next season. Not saying you turn down the Pope of television and Oprah Winfrey, but I think in this case, he did the right thing by just kind of saying, you know what, maybe this is not the time to do Oprah, maybe somewhere down the line.
I think it's a huge mistake he canceled. Now, the biggest mistake is to say yes and then decide to cancel, because you look even worse. And they were saying, well, we're a little too busy. It's like, look, if you want to go on Oprah, you can find the time to go on. But I don't think it's that big of a deal if he goes on. I mean, what are they going to do? Admit that he had dogs fight? I mean, you know, no one's going to sit there and go, oh, this is a huge surprise. Like, there's nothing new out there to learn about it. You go through the process. Oprah maybe gets you to cry. Some people in the audience cry. They all get a sweater and a board game and they go home. And everybody feels like, okay, Vick is cleansed now. And now he's completely admitted how sorry he was. Like, I think we are really soft as a society. So to have him up there with somebody like Oprah, who's not going to go up there and just destroy him. She's going to help him through that process. I think it's a mistake, because it would have helped even more of the public accept him.
But let me point this out. She is a huge, huge dog lover, beyond. So
animal lover to the 25th power.
At some level, there may be some of her that's harder on him than you think. You talk about you're right. An interview with her, all is forgiven if all is forgiven. But if you don't say the right thing, these aren't people, her audience is not.
The right thing.
But if he has, but I don't know if a different question gets posed, if it's presented differently, if he says something that doesn't hit with people that aren't football fans. Because the Oprah audience, not traditionally the football fan audience. So he's definitely reaching a different audience, which can be a good thing. But this is also an audience that's going to go, I don't care if you can play football. I have a problem with what you did, and I'll never get over it. And those are people's opinions that will never change.
Because this story is not going to go away. And if you haven't heard about the Michael Vick story by now, you've been under a cave for the past 2 years, and going on Oprah is not going to be a revelation situation.
Well,
if you're Michael Vick.
I mean, that's what I've said. You're not going to learn anything new. So what's the danger of going on there? Now, you seem to think, because I mean, she's a huge animal lover, that it'll be a different.
I think having watched a lot of Oprah over the years, I think when she feels very passionately, and she has done story after story about puppy mills. She is such an animal lover that I would wonder, you know, people yell and say that Skip and I are biased here, two people who have said Michael Vick deserves a second chance despite our love for dogs.
I completely agree.
But I don't know I have no idea how she'd approach it. But I think you have to remember that going into this interview, that she doesn't have to be unbiased.
I understand that, but if there's one thing I've learned about this country, it's as big as the mistake that you make is. If you fall on your sword and show some contrition that you really are sorry, then people will buy in, and it'll make Vick look better if he had gone through and done this. I think it's a mistake.
I think it's not a mistake, that he can do that anytime.
Having gone through some of that, there's some people who will never change their mind and will refuse to ever believe. They'll choose to believe what they did right away, and will never, ever, ever see it differently. And maybe some of that is the case for Vick.